Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Week 9 recap show. This is James Moynihan. I'm Ross Berkey.
The pleasure's all mine.
We also have a very special halfway through the season show.
Oh, there are so many things to celebrate at this point in the season, and I want to get to all of them.
Let's celebrate the standings.
Let's celebrate the standings right off the bat. Ross Berkey sits atop the league with an 8-1 record. He's followed by Andy Lynch in his division. In the Hard Times division, the Grimsley Bears sit atop the league, followed by Masturbation and my A-Town Rat Tails. Those are the only 5 teams with a winning record thus far. Very interesting.
All right, we also wanted to get into some superlatives. Jimbo, who do you got as the biggest draft steal?
Biggest draft steal to me has to be Reggie Wayne of the Indianapolis Colts. He's got the lucky man throwing to him, and he has now led the league in receiving yards, sits atop the league in that. I just think it's got to be a steal just inside the top 100 selected.
Yeah, my biggest draft steal has got to be Andrew Luck and RG3, the rookie QBs. But we also have to mention Doug Martin, who was a second-round pick, and at the time we all laughed at him, but turned out to be pretty good.
Yeah, Grimsley Bear looked like a fucking fool when he did it, but it's turned out that Doug Martin has been quite a steal in the second round.
Who you got for biggest draft flop?
The draft flop actually goes to one team and their first 3 selections, and that team is BMAC's team. BMAC, within his first 3 selections in the first round, picks Run DMC, who is currently ranked 20th amongst running backs in our league, and has now found himself injured. Surprise, surprise for Run DMC. In the second round, he goes with Steven Jackson, who had been on BMAC's bench for virtually the entire season before being traded to Andy. And then in the third round, he goes with Greg Jennings, who's actually spent more time doing commercials than he has actually playing football. So tough first 3 selections for BMAC. He's maintained strong points, but his team still sucks.
Yeah, mine's got to be Peyton Hillis. JK took him first in the 4th round. He's actually averaged 2.4 points so far this season, ranked 78th out of all running backs.
You know what I always say about white running backs, Ross?
Shitty?
Don't pick them. Don't have them.
All right, who do you got for best/worst trade?
I think the best trade that has been made so far this season is from between Jake and Chooch. Jake sends Malcolm Floyd to Chuck's team, and Chuck sends CJ over to Jake. And CJ could really have a huge resurgence in the second half of the season. He started to look like that running back 1 that we saw 2 years ago. Could play a big role in the second half. I think that was the biggest deal.
All right, and now let's get into the Week 10 matchups.
Looking forward to it.
All right, we got A-Town Rat Tails 5-4 versus Pocono Pawners 3-6. Jimbo, you've made a lot of moves recently, but your new look team looks much better from a couple weeks ago. I really like the addition of Gronk. Actually, the only remaining player from a couple weeks ago is Tony Romo. Jed is in last place in Hard Times, and according to the transaction counter on ESPN, he's our second least active manager behind Chooch. Surprise, surprise.
No shocker.
Jed's looking to rebound from an abysmal performance last week when he put up just 50 points. He's looking to turn his season around, but I'm taking you, Jimbo.
I think that's a good selection. And I still have MJD sitting on that bench for that late season run.
That's true.
Next matchup, we have Bergylicious facing off against the Halloween Heads. This season, Ross has seemed to find the perfect combination of talent and luck, and this week is no exception. John could easily challenge for the lowest total output from a team in league history. He had virtually all of his starters on a bye. Actually, at one point this week, John had 5 starting positions to fill and only 4 players who were eligible to be put into those positions. Had to hit the waiver wire. He's filled up that lineup, but a Halloween Head win would be one of, if not the biggest upsets in league history. Ross, you've got this one. Basically a bye.
Thank you. Grimsley Bears 6-3 versus Honolulu Flying Hawaiians 4-5. Both teams are battling injuries this week. Antonio Brown is out. Aaron Hernandez questionable. I think he'll probably play. But regardless, Grim has 2 questionable wide receivers, Ryan Broyles and Emmanuel Sanders in his starting lineup. Both are owned by less than 3% of fantasy owners. But he still has Muscle Hamster. Rag has DeMarco Murray and Rashard Mendenhall both doubtful this weekend. But the emergence of Andrew Luck and Brandon Marshall has him looking pretty good. I'm taking Rag.
I think Rag's going all in with Andrew Luck. Next up, we have Kindergarten Cop versus the Strip Club Casanovas. First of all, I love the name change from BMAC, but BMAC has been hit with an injury, and that injury is big. Teams were clamoring to buy low on Run DMC, and BMAC refused to make a trade, and his injury-riddled star now finds himself on the bench, hurt again. BMAC probably should have taken advantage of some of those offers. With RG3 on a bye and Tom Brady playing against the abysmal Buffalo Bills, I think Andy pulls out a win and pushes his winning streak up to 5 games, which could mean he could have a 3-game lead over everyone else in the division, and Ross could potentially have a 5-game lead over everyone else in the division. This looks like a 2-horse race.
Could be. All right, Masturbation 5-4 versus WrestleMania 4-5. I think this will be a close match, but Jake's been putting up a lot of points recently. He actually leads Hard Times in points scored thanks to the Chicago Bears defense. Chris Johnson has averaged 20 points per game in his last 4 games, and Jake has probably the best running back tandem in the league with CJ and Marshawn Lynch. Ricky.
Brendan might argue that.
He might. I think Brendan has the best 3 running backs, but Ricky is 3rd in Hard Times in points scored, but has been sputtering recently, actually losing 3 out of his last 4 games. Arian Foster, though, has lived up to his draft position, but he's really been the only consistent player for Schnoots. He's had some huge point swings week to week, so I'm taking Jake in this one.
I think that's good. Consistency.
Yeah.
The Thompson Takeover faces off against the Bad Blue Boys. Lady Luck has not been on Albert's side, and he will tell anyone that'll listen to him about it. The Bad Blue Boys are in 2nd in the division in points, but sit at a very disappointing 3-6 and tied for last place. The Thompson Takeover has shipped out Gronk this week in a 2-for-1 deal, but they still have major issues at both the flex and RB2 spots. JK is hoping that the Raiders' injuries will allow Marcel Reese to have a breakout game against the Ravens. I think Albert gets in the win column this week and pushes that record to 4-6.
All right, and last we have Fighting Frog Swamps 4-5 versus Doug lied about his vasectomy, also 4-5. Looking back at Brendan's schedule so far, he's been pretty consistent, putting up an average of 104 points per game, which is actually 2nd in Hard Times in total points. But he has Alfred Morris on a bye. He still has LaShawn McCoy and Jamal Charles in as his starting running backs. Huge. What a great story this has been, winning 3 out of his last 4 games.
What a story. The comeback story of the year.
But one of the best players during that stretch was Randall Cobb, who was on a bye. I'm taking Brendan.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. We're going to move on and make some predictions to what we see happening in the league in the next few weeks and looking forward to the money and possibly, hopefully, being able to go to New Jersey, God forbid, if it's still not underwater.
That's right. So, Jimbo, in the Happy Endings division,
yes,
who do you like finishing top and who do you like finishing 2nd?
You know, like I said, I think that this is becoming a 2-horse race. I think that you are clearly in a position, the best position. I think you win your division. I think Andy is in a good spot here now. He could go up by 3 games with only about 8 to play. So I think it's going to end up looking very similar to how it does right now, with Bergilicious at the top and the Kindergarten Cop in 2nd. What about you? What do you think?
I am also going to predict myself to finish atop the Happy Endings division. I think Andy finishes 2nd as well. I actually like Al's team the best between everybody else besides myself in that league, but in that division. But I do think that's too much to make up. I think Andy wins that.
Tough to make that big of a jump. So now we'll go on to the Hard Times division, where Grim sits in 1st place right now. He's followed by Masturbation and the A-Town Rat Tails. I'm going to make a prediction here. I'm going to say that our division is going to end up exactly the same as it had last year. I think that the Fighting Frog Swamps are going to climb back into 1st place. Looking at Brendan's schedule and his team, honestly, I don't think he's going to lose the rest of the way. I think he wins out. He puts himself at the top of that division. I think we have similar records, but he ends up having more points. And Grimsley Bears falls. I think Grim probably only wins 3 games the rest of the way. Masturbation's going to be right in there. It's going to be between the 3. That's my prediction. Just a prediction.
All right, my prediction for Hard Times is Masturbation taking it home. I think Jake wins. I think Hakeem Nicks has a good 2nd half. Mike Wallace comes around.
Yeah.
Matt Stafford comes around. He has a lot of players, 2 good running backs, like we mentioned.
Yeah.
I like Jake winning Hard Times division, and then I will take Grim in 2nd place.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? You think he's got that 1-game lead? That seems to be enough.
Yeah, I think he'll maintain 2nd place.
All right.
Yep.
And then the big thing, who do you think is going to win this whole thing? I'm sure that you don't have a big shocker.
Yeah, I'm going to predict myself.
Yeah.
I have to.
You know, I'd love to sit here and predict somebody else, just for the back and forth thing, kind of like PTI. I mean Michael Wilbon, but I think that I think you're going to win too. I think having that lead over both Grim and Andy, teams aren't strong enough to win out. I think you've got a tough schedule the rest of the
That's
way.
true.
Very tough schedule against a lot of hard times.
And we'll remind you, Rag last year was sitting in first place.
Yes, we have
Halfway through. We have
Rag-
video proof of
We
this.
have video proof.
He did not fare so well
no,
second half. So
No, absolutely not.
We'll
Chuck was
see.
in a similar position last year, so we'll see what happens.
Only time will tell.
Looking forward to the second half of the season. I hope to keep on seeing those emails come in. And oh, by the way, we got WrestleMania tickets.
Yep, and we'll see a lot of you on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, fuck you.
Later, guys.